Welcome back, guys, to Blackout War Stories. Before we start the video, hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. I never meant to write this down. God knows if anyone will even believe me, but it's been rotting in my head for years, the kind of thing that keeps you staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, hearing echoes in the dark. It was late 2002, deep inside the jagged ridges of Tora Bora. Our unit had been sent there on what we were told was a search and sweep. Intel briefing said we'd be looking for weapon stashes, leftover fighters, maybe even high-value targets hiding in those tunnels. But that was only the official line. Unofficially, whispers spread quick. Some guys claimed whole squads had gone missing inside the mountain. Others swore the caves weren't natural, that they stretched further than maps showed, deeper than geology made sense. No one talked about it out loud, not where the officers could hear. We pushed forward anyway, boots scraping over shale and dust. The mountain air bit sharp and cold, carrying the faint smell of smoke, like something had been burning deep underground for far too long. Even before we stepped into the first cave, the silence pressed in, unnatural silence, heavier than the usual quiet of the hills. I remember looking back at Ramirez, the youngest in our team. His face was pale, eyes darting between the shadows, as if something inside was already watching him. "You feel that?" he whispered. I wanted to tell him no, but I couldn't, because I did feel it, a pressure in my chest like we were stepping into someone else's territory, something that didn't want us there. We entered the tunnels with flashlights cutting thin beams through the dark. The rock walls were marked with old carvings, scratches and symbols that didn't look like Arabic or Pashto, not even close. Some of them had been clawed over, as if someone had tried to erase them in a hurry. "What the hell is this?" Mason muttered, brushing his gloved hand across a symbol that looked like an eye split down the middle. No one answered. Further in, the air grew colder, damper. Our radios hissed and cracked. Half the time, the signals didn't carry more than 20 feet. Orders were whispered, carried by nervous glances. That was when we found the first body. At least we thought it was a body. It lay curled in the corner, uniform shredded, skin stretched tight and gray. No smell of rot, no insects, just this brittle, empty husk, like the life had been sucked right out of it. The patches were gone from his uniform, but the boots, they were ours. American issue. "Jesus Christ," Ramirez stammered, voice cracking. "That's one of ours." Mason knelt, trying to check for ID, but the moment he touched the corpse's arm, it crumbled, disintegrated into dust that clung to his gloves. We all froze. No one said anything, but we all knew. This hadn't been in any briefing. This was the kind of thing the brass would never admit, the kind of thing that never makes it to the reports. And as we stood there, the silence shifted. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was breathing. Not ours. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels, slow, heavy, wet. That's when the lights flickered. The dark flexed like a lung. Then Doyle's whisper cut in, dragging us toward why we were here at all. We froze in that tunnel, backs pressed to damp rock, rifles shaking in our hands. I swear to God I could hear it, something breathing slow and heavy somewhere deeper down, like a bellows dragging in air through waterlogged lungs. It wasn't just me. Every man in that tunnel heard it, but no one moved, not until Sergeant Doyle's voice cracked over the comms, hushed but sharp. "Keep it together." We push on. His voice carried that weight of command, the kind that forces your body to move even when your mind is screaming not to. Doyle wasn't the type to crack easy. He'd been in the Gulf, Somalia, and now here, grinding through mountain ops with the kind of steel you only get from too many years in combat. But even he couldn't hide the tightness in his jaw. I saw the way his hand trembled when he tightened his grip on the rifle. We pushed forward. The air got colder with every step. My breath fogged in front of me like it was winter, though outside the mountain the heat had been close to unbearable. It didn't add up. Nothing about that place added up. As we advanced, I kept my mind busy by replaying how we even got sent there. We'd been stationed at Jalalabad, running patrols and escorts mostly. Long, dusty convoys, tense hours watching rooftops, scanning roads for IDs. The kind of grind where days blurred into each other. Then one evening, Doyle called us in, face stern under the fluorescent hum of the outpost tent. A special assignment, he called it. High-level orders, no questions. We were to move toward Tora Bora under cover of night and link up with a handler from another branch. Doyle never said which one. The official mission sheet, the one they let us see, talked about intercepting remaining enemy combatants. But soldiers talk, and rumors move faster than memos. We heard about patrols that never returned, caves that swallowed men whole, radios gone dead mid-report. There was one story, told late one night around a weak fire, about a squad that stumbled out of the mountain barefoot and raving, uniforms torn, eyes bloodshot. They'd been pulled from the field before anyone could ask them what happened. Some said they were locked away, others said they just disappeared. So when we were told we'd be pushing into Tora Bora ourselves, the mood shifted. No one cracked the usual jokes, not even Mason, who could always find something smart to say. Instead, silence hung heavy over us, broken only by Ramirez's nervous questions. He was fresh out of training, barely a year in uniform. The rest of us were worn down, but he still had that young face that didn't know how to hide fear. "Why us?" he asked more than once, voice low so Doyle wouldn't hear. "Why not Delta? Rangers? Why send a bunch of line grunts up there?" No one answered him. Maybe because we didn't know. Maybe because deep down, we suspected the truth those other units had already gone in and hadn't come back. The day we moved out, the air in the valley felt wrong, like the whole mountain was watching us. The terrain was harsh, jagged cliffs and steep trails where one wrong step meant a 100-foot drop. But that wasn't what made my skin crawl. It was the silence. Normally you hear life in the hills goats, distant voices, gunfire sometimes. Out there, nothing. No wind, no birds, no distant rumble of trucks. Just quiet so heavy it pressed into your ears until you thought you'd go deaf. When we reached the first cave, Doyle gave the signal and we went in. Flashlights cut across rock walls slick with condensation, shadows crawling along like they didn't belong to us. That's when we saw those strange markings etched into stone. Not fresh, not new, but deep, like someone or something had carved them centuries ago. We should have turned back then. We all knew it. But orders don't work that way. And now here we were, deeper in, staring at the dust of one of our own crumbling between Mason's fingers, listening to that sound in the dark. I tried to push my thoughts back to training, back to routine. Breathe, check corners, keep your finger near the trigger but not on it. But routine doesn't hold when you're somewhere you were never meant to be. We advanced another 100 feet or so, and the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Our lights swept over walls carved smooth, unnaturally smooth, as if machines had cut them, not erosion or hand tools. In the center of the chamber, there was a pit. Not a small one either, wide and black, with edges so sharp it looked like a wound in the rock. Our beams couldn't catch the bottom. "Secure the area," Doyle ordered, though his voice was lower than usual. Ramirez muttered under his breath, "This ain't right, Sarge. This isn't enemy territory. This is something else." Doyle didn't answer. He just motioned us to spread out. That's when I noticed something on the far wall. Not just symbols this time, words. English words, scratched rough into stone by a knife or bayonet. I stepped closer, running my light across them. "Do not follow the sound." The letters were jagged, desperate, like someone had carved them in the dark, in a hurry, before something got to them. My stomach dropped as I traced the edges with my light. Behind me, Mason whispered, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, the radios crackled with static, every single one at once. A burst of noise so loud we flinched and pulled our earpieces out. When it stopped, the silence returned, but not the same silence. This time it was broken by a sound I'll never forget. A scream, high-pitched, human, echoing from somewhere deeper in the mountain. And worse it was in English. The scream tore through the chamber and froze us where we stood. It wasn't distant, like an echo you couldn't place. It carried sharp and raw, bouncing off the stone until it felt like the walls themselves were crying out. For a moment, none of us breathed. It wasn't the scream of a villager or a Taliban fighter. It was American. Jesus Christ, Ramirez whispered, voice shaking. That's one of ours. The sound cut off as suddenly as it started, like someone had thrown a switch. No fading, no echo trailing off, just silence again. That heavy, unnatural silence. Doyle's face was pale under his helmet light, but he didn't hesitate. We move, he ordered, his voice clipped. On me. Tight formation. Every part of me wanted to turn back, to drag Ramirez and Mason out into the open air. But the order came, and training took over. My boots moved forward even though my gut twisted like I was marching into my own grave. We followed the tunnel deeper, flashlights trembling in our hands. The deeper we went, the stranger it felt. The air had a weight to it, like we were walking underwater. My ears popped again and again, like the pressure was shifting in ways that didn't make sense. I kept hearing faint sounds, scrapes, whispers, but every time I swung my light around, there was nothing. Ramirez whispered too much. Sarge, it could be a trap. Could be they're using recordings, like psyops. Doyle shut him down quick. Shut it, eyes front. But I caught Mason glancing at me in the beam of his light. We both knew it didn't sound like a recording. It sounded too raw, too broken, too human. We reached another chamber, narrower this time, with jagged edges like the rock had been torn open. Stalactites hung low, dripping cold water that echoed in sharp plinks. Against the far wall were more symbols, spirals, jagged lines, circles with slashes through them. Someone had scrawled fresh lines of chalk over them, messy and frantic, the chalk still damp in the cave's humidity. I bent close and saw English again, written fast, the letters uneven. ITHEARSYOU. ITNEVERSTOPS. My mouth went dry. I didn't even call the others over. They'd seen enough already. The scream came again, farther ahead now, echoing through the stone like it was being pulled from one tunnel to the next. This time it was weaker, more ragged, like whoever it was didn't have much voice left. Ramirez started shaking his head. We can't. This isn't right. We need to pull out. Doyle snapped around on him, jaw tight. That's an order, Ramirez. We move. Now. I could see Doyle forcing it. He wasn't immune to the fear, but he wasn't going to let it show. Still, there was something in his eyes, a flicker I'd never seen before. He knew more than he was letting on. We pushed deeper. At one point, Mason raised a hand and stopped us. His beam had caught something half buried in dust. A helmet. US issue, cracked down the side like it had been split with an axe. Next to it lay a rifle. The barrel was bent, twisted like it had been made of soft metal. None of us touched it. We just stared and then moved on. The tunnels grew tighter, pressing in around us. My shoulder scraped the walls as we squeezed through a narrow gap, the rock cold and wet against my gear. The scream hadn't come again, but that almost made it worse. The silence was alive now, a pressure crawling over my skin, as if the mountain itself was listening. We came into another chamber, this one with a ceiling so high our lights couldn't catch it. The walls were covered in scratches, layer after layer, going back who knows how long. Some were in languages I didn't recognize. Others were symbols repeating over and over. Circles split in half, crooked arrows, eyes without pupils. And in the center of the chamber, half buried in rubble, was a door. Not a cave wall, not rock, an actual metal door, huge and rusted, bolts lining the edges. It looked like it had been built into the mountain, sealed tight, then forgotten. Dust and stone covered half of it, but enough showed to make the hair on my neck stand up. What the hell is this? Mason muttered. Doyle's face hardened. Not our concern. Stay focused. But I saw the way his eyes lingered on it, the way his jaw clenched. He knew something. He'd known since Jalalabad, maybe even before. That door wasn't news to him. Before we could push further, the radios hissed again. This time it wasn't just static. It was a voice. Broken, distant, warped through interference, but definitely a voice. Help! It's still here. Then silence. Ramirez stumbled back, nearly dropping his rifle. That's an American voice. Someone's alive in here. Doyle didn't deny it. He just barked, "Move!" and let us pass the door, deeper into the dark. We followed the tunnels until they twisted downward. The air grew fouler, a damp rot that clung to our throats. My flashlight caught something ahead, and my heart stopped. Bones, piles of them, scattered along the ground. Not neat, not buried, just left there. Some still had scraps of uniforms, not just ours. Old uniforms, older than our war. Russians, maybe. Even older, still rusted helmets I didn't recognize. Styles I'd only seen in history books. It wasn't just our war that had bled into these caves. Something had been feeding here for decades, maybe longer. Mason swore under his breath, and none of us told him to stop. That's when the scream came again. This time it wasn't ahead of us. It was behind. We spun, light sweeping back down the tunnel we'd just come through. Nothing. Just the dark pressing in, thick and endless. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, dragging. "Contact," Doyle hissed, raising his weapon. We formed up, rifles trained on the black mouth of the tunnel. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might tear out of my chest. The footsteps came closer, scraping against stone. But no figure appeared. Just the sound, echoing closer and closer until it was right at the edge of our lights. Then it stopped. Dead silence. My beam caught something on the ground, just inside the dark. A boot, American issue, caked with dust, but no leg inside it. Just the boot lying on its side. We all held our breath, waiting for the next sound. And then, from the dark, a whisper. Leave it. It was English. But it wasn't Ramirez. It wasn't Mason or Doyle. It came from the tunnel itself, low and ragged, like a voice torn through shredded vocal cords. Leave before it hears you. That whisper hit us harder than any gunfight. None of us moved for a full 10 seconds. The sound had been too close, too raw, like the speaker was leaning right into our ears. My flashlight beam shook as I aimed it down the tunnel. Nothing. Just black stone swallowing the light. Ramirez's voice cracked. That was English. That was English. Who the hell? Shut it, Doyle snapped. His voice was low, sharp, but not steady. I'd served under him long enough to hear the quiver he tried to bury. Mason stepped forward a few feet, rifle raised, eyes locked on the dark. Who's there? Identify yourself. His voice echoed and then died, swallowed by the cave. No answer. Just the slow drip of water somewhere deeper in. Doyle gave the hand signal to move, but none of us shifted. That whisper had frozen something deeper than bone. I found myself staring at Doyle, and in that moment I realized something that made my stomach turn. He wasn't surprised. He looked cornered. Sergeant, I muttered, my voice barely above a breath. You knew. His eyes snapped to me. Watch your mouth. You knew something was in here. This wasn't just a sweep. They sent us here for this. He didn't answer, and that silence was as good as confirmation. Ramirez's breathing grew frantic. What the hell is going on, Sarge? What are we walking into? Doyle's jaw tightened. Mission parameters don't concern you. We move, or we die in this hole. That was when the whisper came again. Louder this time, rasping, urgent. Turn back. It watches. Ramirez swung his rifle up toward the dark like he was about to open fire. Show yourself! Something shifted in the shadows. Not a figure, not solid, just a ripple, like the dark itself had moved. Then a beam of my light caught the wall, and I saw it. Scratch marks, fresh ones, cutting deep into the stone. Letters gouged out with something sharp. Run. The word was half finished, like whoever wrote it didn't have time to complete it. Mason saw it too. He cursed and backed up a step, his boot crunching on something brittle. Bones again, smaller this time. Maybe animal, maybe not. Doyle, Mason said, his voice low. We're done. This isn't a mission anymore. This is suicide. Doyle didn't respond. Instead, he keyed his comm. Command, this is Bravo 2-1. We've got possible survivors requesting dash dash. The line hissed, then cut with a screech of static so sharp we all tore our earpieces out. For a second, I swear I heard another voice buried in the static, low and almost mocking. Then it was gone. We stood there in the silence, our sergeant staring at his dead radio. Finally, he lowered it, his face pale. "No more comms," he muttered. "We finished this." Ramirez snapped. "Finish what?" "Tell us the truth, Sarge. What the hell is in here?" Doyle turned to him, and for a heartbeat I thought he was going to pull his sidearm, but instead he spoke through clenched teeth. "They didn't send us for enemy fighters. They sent us to verify something code-named Project Hearth Soviet doors they sealed in the 80s. Doors intel now says are breaking open." The words hit me like a round to the chest. It explained the bones, the old gear, the strange scratches, and it explained Doyle's eyes. He'd known from the start. "What did they find?" Mason pressed, his voice sharp. Doyle hesitated, then said it. "They found doors. Places that shouldn't exist. Whole sections of the mountain hollowed out, carved by something no human put there. The Soviets sealed them, left men behind to make sure they stayed sealed. But intel says the seals broke, and now..." He stopped. He didn't need to finish. We all knew what now meant. Before anyone could speak, the tunnel ahead lit up with a faint glow. Not our lights, something else. A pale shimmer, like moonlight underwater, seeping from cracks in the stone. It pulsed faintly, almost like it was breathing with us. "Contact front," Doyle ordered, but his voice lacked force now. We moved forward, rifles trained, until we reached the source. The tunnel opened into another chamber, larger than the rest, and in the center of it, a wall, not stone, metal, blackened, scarred, but unmistakably built. Strange shapes were etched into its surface, symbols that burned faintly with that same pale glow. The air was freezing cold, spilling from the seams like the thing was bleeding winter. The door we'd seen before had been rusted, forgotten. This one was alive. Ramirez muttered, "That ain't Russian. That ain't ours. That ain't human." Mason stepped closer, his light tracing over the symbols. "This is what they sent us for." Christ, they knew this was here. Doyle didn't answer. He was staring at the door, his hands shaking on his rifle. That's when the voice came again, clearer now, echoing from the very seams of the wall. "Don't open it?" We spun, searching for the source, but it came from nowhere and everywhere. The glow on the metal pulsed stronger, like it was responding to us. Then another sound followed, scraping, dragging, like nails clawing from the other side. The metal vibrated under it, dust falling from the ceiling. Ramirez backed up fast. No, we're not doing this. We're leaving." But Doyle's voice cut him off. "We can't. Our orders were to verify. We verified." The sound grew louder, a slow pounding now, like fists slamming from inside. The glow brightened, searing into our eyes. That's when Mason shouted, "Sarge, it's not sealed! It's opening!" And he was right. The seams along the wall split, just slightly, but enough for a rush of air to burst through. Air so cold it burned, carrying with it a smell I'll never forget. Decay, rot, wet earth mixed with something metallic and sharp. The pounding stopped. For a moment, silence. Then a single whisper, closer than ever, right between us. "It's free." The sound of the seal breaking will never leave me. It was a groan deep in the stone, like the whole mountain had been holding its breath for centuries and was finally exhaling. Dust rained from the ceiling. Our beams caught it swirling like smoke. The glow along the metal seams pulsed brighter, then dimmed, then flared again as the gap widened just enough to breathe. A wave of air hit us, freezing cold, sharp. It stank of rot and iron, like a slaughterhouse left to fester underground. My eyes watered. Ramirez gagged behind his mask, spitting into the dirt. Mason muttered a prayer under his breath, the words stumbling out like he didn't remember them right. Doyle just stared, jaw tight, face hollow under the pale glow. His rifle hung useless at his side. The pounding from inside stopped. That was worse than the noise. Silence came back heavy, crushing. Every man in that chamber knew the same truth. We let something loose. Then came the sound. Not a scream, not even footsteps. It was movement. Wet, dragging movement, like something pulling itself forward on the other side of the wall. I swear the metal bent outward with each scrape, "Light it up!" Mason roared, panic breaking his voice. Our rifles snapped up, muzzles flashing as we fired. The chamber filled with deafening bursts, shell casings clattering on stone. Sparks ricocheted off the metal wall, but the glow only grew brighter. Our rounds weren't doing a damn thing. "Cease!" Doyle shouted, waving us down. "Cease fire! Save your ammo!" We lowered our weapons, breath ragged, ears ringing. The glow throbbed steady now, and the dragging noise stopped. That's when the whisper came again, but different this time. It wasn't warning us. It wasn't human anymore. "Hungry?" Ramirez lost it. He broke from the formation, sprinting back toward the tunnel we'd come through. "I'm not dying here. I'm not..." We all turned to grab him, but before we could, the glow flared so bright the whole chamber washed white. A sound tore through the air, low and deep, like the earth splitting in half. Then something slipped through the seam. I only caught glimpses. A shadow first stretched too long against the walls. Then a shape, hunched and twisted, dragging itself with limbs that bent wrong. The air dropped colder with each inch it crawled forward. My light caught the edge of it. Skin, if you could call it that. Pale and slick like it had never touched the sun. Ramirez screamed. His flashlight beam jerked wild, then vanished as something pulled him into the dark. No gunfire, no warning, just gone. His scream cut off mid-breath. "Contact! Contact!" Mason yelled, firing down the tunnel where Ramirez disappeared. His rounds sparked uselessly off stone. The thing never showed itself in full, just shadows, just movement. And that smell, thick, metallic, choking. Doyle barked orders, but they barely registered. "Form up! Defensive! Eyes on each other!" His voice cracked, and that scared me more than the thing did. I swung my light back to the door. The seam had widened further, dark mist spilling out, curling around our boots. I stepped back fast, my rifle trembling in my hands. That's when I heard it again. Not the whisper. A voice. "Help me!" It was Ramirez's voice, weak, pleading, from the mist. Mason froze, eyes wide. "That's him! He's alive!" He stepped toward the mist, gun lowered. "No!" I shouted, grabbing his vest. "That's not him!" You heard what it said before. It hears us. It copies us. But Mason shook me off, moving forward. "I'm not leaving him!" He reached the edge of the mist, crouched, peered in. His light caught something Ramirez's face, pale, eyes wide, reaching out. Then the mist surged. A shape slammed into Mason, dragging him into the dark. His rifle fired wildly, rounds sparking off rock until the shots cut off. His scream echoed sharp, then turned into gurgling, then silence. Doyle and I stood frozen, just two of us now. The mist curled higher, crawling the walls like smoke with weight. "Back!" Doyle ordered. "Fall back, now!" We ran. Boots pounded stone, flashlights bouncing frantic across the tunnels. Behind us the sound followed, dragging, scraping, and something else. Whispering. Not one voice now. Dozens. All speaking at once, layered and broken. Some English, some not. Some familiar. I swear I heard Mason's voice calling my name. Ramirez's too. Then voices I didn't recognize. Men long dead. The Soviets maybe. Even older still. "Don't listen," Doyle hissed. "Keep moving." We sprinted through narrow cuts, scraping shoulders on wet rock, lungs burning with cold air. The whispers followed, sometimes ahead of us, sometimes behind, like the sound bent through the stone. My flashlight beam caught more words carved into the walls as we passed. It feeds. It remembers. It becomes. The mountain seemed endless. Tunnels twisted back on themselves, chambers repeating like a maze. My sense of direction vanished. At one point, I realized we'd passed the same pile of bones twice. Doyle cursed under his breath, his mask cracking. That's when the glow appeared again, up ahead, down a side passage. A faint, steady pulse. Doyle stopped, chest heaving. He raised his rifle, pointing it toward the glow. "That's the way out." "Has to be." I stared at him. "You don't know that." He met my eyes. His were hollow, exhausted. "I know we can't go back." So we moved toward the glow, each step closer, The whispers grew louder, drowning out thought. They weren't warnings anymore. They were commands. Stay. Join us. Forever. The passage widened into another chamber. My heart dropped when I saw it. Another wall, another door, just like the last one. Same black metal, same glowing seams. But this one wasn't sealed. It was wide open. The glow spilled out in blinding waves, the cold air rushing stronger, heavier. Inside the doorway, there was nothing but black. A void. No walls, no floor. Just an endless dark that pulled at my eyes, made me feel like I was tipping forward into it. Doyle froze, his rifle lowered, forgotten. Oh God, there's more than one! The whispers became screams then, deafening, overlapping, filling the chamber until my skull vibrated. Shapes moved inside the black, dozens, maybe hundreds, writhing like shadows against a deeper shadow. I grabbed Doyle's arm, yelling over the noise. "We have to get out, now!" He didn't answer. He was staring into the dark, tears running down his face. This is why they sent us. Not to close it, to see if it was still open. Before I could pull him back, the mist surged out of the doorway, slamming into us like a wave. I hit the ground hard, rifle clattering away. My light spun wild, catching glimpses faces in the mist, twisted, screaming, eyes hollow. Some looked American, some didn't. All wrong. Doyle disappeared in the surge. His scream tore through the chamber, then cut short, swallowed whole. I scrambled to my feet, blind, coughing, clawing for my rifle. My hand found it just as something cold and slick brushed my shoulder. I spun and fired, the muzzle flash blinding. The mist recoiled for a heartbeat, enough for me to run. I didn't think, I just moved. Through tunnels, past carvings, past bones. I didn't stop, didn't breathe. Just ran until the cold faded and the whispers grew distant. Until finally, light, faint, real, the outside. I stumbled into daylight, falling to my knees on the rocky slope. The sun was setting, painting the cliffs red. For a long time, I just sat there, gasping, staring at the cave mouth behind me. Nothing followed. The mountain was silent again, but I knew it was still in there. And I was the only one left. When I stumbled out of that cave, I thought sunlight would save me. It didn't. It felt wrong, too bright, too sharp. My eyes watered, and the warmth of the air felt like heat pressing into an open wound. My body shook so bad I could hardly hold my rifle. I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting for the whispers to crawl out of that tunnel after me. But nothing came. The mouth of the cave just sat there, dark and quiet, like it had never breathed on us at all. I don't remember how I made it down the slope. My legs moved on their own, slipping over loose rock, catching on brush, my boots sliding. I heard voices once, real voices this time, and raised my rifle like a wild animal. It was a recovery team, American. They froze when they saw me, eyes wide. One of them shouted, "Hold your fire!" Jesus Christ, he's one of ours. They swarmed me, their hands grabbing my gear, steadying me as I collapsed. I couldn't form words. My mouth just opened and closed. Everything I wanted to say stayed jammed in my throat. They hauled me to a truck, strapped me down. I remember the hum of the engine, the rattle of gear, the steady voices of men who hadn't seen what I had. They kept asking where the rest of my unit was. I couldn't answer. I think I shook my head once. Maybe I muttered something. It doesn't matter. Back at the FOB, it didn't take long before I was pulled from the others. They called it medical observation. No one explained anything. They put me in a small tent with cots and lights that buzzed overhead all night. Doctors came in, checked my vitals, wrote notes. Men in plain clothes followed, not doctors, not military either. They asked questions soft and steady, repeating them again and again like they wanted me to slip. What happened in the tunnels? Where did your men go? What did you see? I gave them pieces, the bones, the old gear, the sealed door. But every time I said voices or mist, their pens stopped. They didn't write those parts down. One of them leaned forward once, his face close to mine. "Soldier, what you're describing isn't possible. You're confused, shocked, You understand? I stared at him. My hands shook against the blanket on my cot. Then where's my squad? He didn't answer, just closed his notebook and left. After that, things blurred. Days, maybe weeks. They moved me to another camp. Cleaner, quieter. I wasn't allowed outside. Every time I asked about Doyle, Mason, or Ramirez, they told me the same thing. Classified. When I pushed harder, they said maybe my memory wasn't reliable. Maybe the caves collapsed. Maybe I imagined things after an ambush. They even showed me a report once, typed neat and stamped official. It said my squad was killed in an engagement with enemy combatants. I was listed as the only survivor, rescued after sustaining psychological trauma. Not one word about the tunnels, not one word about what we'd found. I wanted to tear the paper apart, but I just sat there staring at it. That's when I realized they weren't just covering it up. They were erasing it. At night, I'd lie awake on that cot, staring at the tent ceiling, listening for the whispers. Sometimes I thought I heard them in the hum of the lights, in the shuffle of boots outside. A faint voice calling my name, telling me to come back. I'd bury my head under the blanket, clench my fists until my nails dug into my palms, and wait for morning. One night, I woke to find someone sitting in the chair by my cot. Not a doctor, not a soldier. A man in a suit, his hair slicked, his eyes sharp. He didn't introduce himself, just watched me for a long time, then leaned in close. "You didn't see anything," he said quietly. "Do you understand?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. If I didn't see anything, then why am I here? His mouth curled, not quite a smile. "Because we need to be sure you'll remember it that way." Then he stood and left. I never saw him again. After that, the questions stopped. The doctors stopped. Weeks later, maybe months, they released me. Gave me a paper saying I was cleared for duty, then another saying I was rotated home early for health reasons. It didn't add up, but I didn't fight it. I just took the papers and boarded the flight. Back home, people looked at me like I was lucky, like surviving made me blessed. My family hugged me, asked about the guys, about Doyle. I told them nothing. I couldn't. Every time I tried, my throat locked. Every time I thought of Ramirez's scream, Mason's last look, Doyle's hollow eyes, I shut down. The Army sent me to counselors. I sat in those offices, nodded when they said trauma and hallucinations. I let them write their reports. Easier that way. But inside, I knew what I'd seen, and I knew it hadn't stayed buried. Sometimes I dream about the tunnels. I see the glow seeping through cracks, feel the cold crawling into my bones. I wake drenched in sweat, ears straining for whispers in the dark. Sometimes I think I hear them, faint, calling me back, and I wonder if they ever really let me go. The strangest part came months later. I got a letter, no return address, just my name typed neat on the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. On it, one line scrawled by hand, "It still hears you." That was all. I burned the paper that night, but it didn't matter. The words stayed. Every shadow I see, every silence I step into, I hear them echo. I tell myself maybe it's in my head, maybe they were right, maybe it was shock, hallucinations, trauma. But then I remember the symbols carved into stone long before we ever walked into that mountain. The bones of soldiers from wars before ours, the whispers that knew our names. Number. It wasn't in my head, it was real. And they buried it, just like they always do. I've tried to bury it, tried to let time wear it down, the way it does with everything else. But the truth doesn't fade. It rots inside you, festers, until it feels like a second heartbeat under your ribs. That's what these words are, one last attempt to let it out before it eats me alive. Sometimes I sit in my small apartment, TV on with the volume low, and catch myself staring at the shadows in the corners. They stretch too long. They move when nothing else does. My neighbors don't notice, but I do. I can't unsee it. The mountain marked me, same as it did the others, only I walked out when they didn't. I think about that every day. Why me? Why not Doyle or Mason or even Ramirez? If there was logic to it, I never found it. Maybe it just wanted one of us to walk free, to carry the memory like a seed. I drink more now. It dulls the edges, helps me sleep for a few hours before the dreams pull me under again. The tunnels always come back. Sometimes I'm with the squad, flashlights cutting through damp air, rifles up. Sometimes I'm alone, chasing those whispers down endless passages. And sometimes I hear Ramirez behind me, his hand clamping my shoulder, his voice rasping in my ear. It's still here. I wake up shaking, drenched in sweat, heart pounding like I never left that cave. And even when I'm awake, the silence never feels like silence anymore. It's waiting, listening. I've thought about going back. That sounds insane, I know. But part of me thinks maybe if I stood in front of that door again, saw it with my own eyes, I could prove to myself it was real. Or maybe not. Maybe I'd just vanish like the rest, and the world would keep spinning without me. That's what the Army taught me. Nobody remembers the ones who disappear. They just get replaced. Sometimes I wonder if other wars found places like this. If soldiers in Vietnam, Korea, hell, even back in World War II stumbled into caves or ruins that weren't meant for us. You hear stories if you listen long enough. Patrols that vanished, men who came back broken, speaking nonsense until they were locked away. We call it trauma, shell shock, PTSD. Maybe that's all it is. Or maybe trauma is just the mind's way of trying to survive the impossible. What eats at me the most isn't what we found. It's how easily it was buried. One report stamped, one page filed, and the truth is gone. Families of my squad got letters saying their sons died in an ambush. Simple, clean. And if I'd died too, that would have been the end of it. But I didn't. And now I'm left with this weight, knowing something in those mountains isn't finished. I keep waiting for someone to show up at my door. A man in a suit, maybe, or soldiers in plain trucks. To finish the job, to make sure silence holds. But nobody comes. And that almost makes it worse. It means they don't need to silence me. They know nobody will believe me. And maybe they're right. If you've made it this far, maybe even you think I'm broken, spinning stories from shadows. But you didn't hear what I heard in those tunnels. You didn't see men disappear in a mist like they were nothing. You didn't watch a mountain breathe. I did. I don't know how much longer I can carry it. Writing this feels like carving it into stone, making it real all over again. Maybe that's why I'm doing it. If anything happens to me, if I vanish the way my squad did, at least someone will know. At least these words will exist, even if they get buried under lies. I keep coming back to that message in the letter. It still hears you. At first, I thought it meant the thing in the mountain, that it could somehow reach me from miles away, listening through silence. But lately, I've started thinking it might be something else. Maybe it isn't just the mountain that hears me. Maybe it's the people who buried the truth, watching, waiting to see if I talk. Either way, I don't sleep much anymore. When I close my eyes, I hear the pounding on that door, the way the seams glowed brighter with every breath we took. I hear Mason screaming as the mist dragged him down. I hear Doyle's last words before it swallowed him whole, and I hear Ramirez begging, pleading, until his voice became something else entirely. And underneath it all, I hear the whispers. Not words anymore, just sound, low, endless, like a tide pulling me back toward the dark. If you're reading this, maybe you'll think it's just another soldier's nightmare. Maybe you'll fold it away, forget it. But if you ever find yourself near Tora Bora, near those ridges and valleys where the silence feels wrong, listen closely. If the air turns cold, if your radio fills with static, if you hear your own name whispered from the dark, don't go in. Don't follow, because once it hears you, it never forgets. I'm not sure how much longer I can fight it. Some nights I swear I see the glow under my door. Some mornings I wake with dust on my boots, though I haven't left the room. I don't know if it's memory or if the mountain finally reached out. Maybe this is my last night writing. Maybe tomorrow the silence will take me too. If that happens, don't believe the report. Don't believe the words natural causes or suicide or accident. Know that I told you the truth. Know that the mountain is still breathing, and one day it's going to open again.